We're here in Disney World, home of the cute and adorable. And you know what else is cute and adorable and heartwarming? Sheep, and also puppies. So today, we're going to be live coding an app that takes live data from the Orlando area to find puppies that are available for adoption. And we're going to be showing how to use, through that, how to incorporate business logic into your Flutter app. And then also, we're going to be showing how to incorporate web views into a Flutter app. So what is Flutter, you might be asking? Well, it is an SDK that allows you to build apps for iOS and Android, all from a single code base. On the, on your right, you have 4 different apps that are all written using Flutter. And they look pretty different. So that really speaks to Flutter's customizability, so that you can create an app that is appropriate for your company or for the vision that you have in your head. You're not limited by a particular toolkit. And then if you've heard of cross-platform solutions, you might be a little bit skeptical. Oftentimes, with cross-platform solutions, you deal with performance issues or compatibility things. But the thing with Flutter is you actually can have your cake and eat it too. So you can have a really great developer experience, and it compiles down to native code. So it is fast, and it looks great on the platforms that you're working with.
But you don't have to take our word for it. I'm sure that most of you have heard before about this successful Broadway musical called Hamilton. They have a lot of fans, so they wanted to engage with them by creating an app and targeting both iOS and Android platforms. So they wanted to have this app as soon as possible because their fans were very, very excited. So what they did is to create one app using Flutter, and they dedicated 3 months coding one app targeting both platforms. And despite not having any previous experience on Flutter, they achieved a really nice app with getting over 1 million installs, over 500,000 monthly active users, and a 4.7 star rating, which is really awesome. And this is, for us, a very good example on how easy it is to learn Flutter and its capabilities.
So there are 3 core things that Flutter strives to make good experience. First of all is your development experience. And that the big thing that contributes to the great developer experience is this feature called stateful hot reload, which you'll see when we are doing our live coding very shortly. But the short version is you'll code, and within a second, you will see your changes appear on screen, be it on your mobile, like an actual physical mobile device or an emulator. And then the second one is this expressive UI toolkit, which I alluded to a little bit. So if you can dream it, you should be able to create it. And that's partly because Flutter is drawing all the pixels of the screen, so we're controlling the entire stack. And then lastly, you can deploy to iOS and Android. And there's 2 parts to this. So Flutter is compiling down to native ARM instructions, like machine instructions. So it's going to be super fast. You don't have to worry about lag time and performance issues. And then the second part is that you can get a native look and feel on both of your apps without having to do a lot of extra work. So what I have here is a single app that has been coded, and the developer did nothing specific to the platform. But you can see that one is running on iOS and one's running on Android. And they look slightly different. So there are things like the fonts are slightly different. The way you navigate from one page to the next is appropriate for the platform that it's running on. And even things like scroll behavior is specific. You have the Android overscroll or the iOS bounce, as you can see. And this all comes out of the box, so you can focus on the interesting parts of your app, like making it do what you want it to do.
Yeah. So I'm, in fact, an Android developer. I've been doing Android for about 2 years now, so I'm in the beginning of my career. And I guess you may be wondering now, what are you doing here today with Emily talking about Flutter? What got me into it? So everything started as you will learn any other framework. I saw a talk on Flutter in another DevFest in Hamburg, in Germany, and I thought, this is nice, but I didn't check it out afterwards. And then I saw an announcement from Google at Google I/O, and I thought, this is pretty cool, so I wanted to try it out. So I did. I created my first project on Flutter, and the first thing I did was change the screen background color. Simple. And I remember hitting save, looking at the emulator, and I saw the change already made. That didn't happen ever with Android. That was incredible for me. So I loved it so much, I had to do it again. But this time, looking at the emulator and see the change happening instantly for me. So that's what caught my eye the first time. The speed of deployment, what Emily was explaining before, the hot reload. I didn't have those long waiting times I used to have with native Android, which made it lovely and addictive. About programming, the programming language. As I said, I started 2 years ago learning Android, so I started with Java programming language. Shortly after, I started learning Kotlin too. And I knew that Flutter was written in another language, so I thought, okay, learning 3 languages at the same time, I'm going to mix all of them. This cannot be good. Turns out the opposite. Dart is very easy to understand, straightforward. And if you are an Android developer coming from the Java world, it's going to be very, very easy for you to understand. And it was for me with only 2 years of experience. As I started playing with widgets, I realized that Flutter SDK had already many widgets built in for you for many things that the Android framework itself doesn't have, and you have to build them yourself. For this, I think it's better with an example. Like, let's say we want to display an image inside a circle, but the API is returning you a squared image. On Android, I guess you will create your custom view, which is a class that is extending from image view class, and then you will apply some borders, so you have a circle. You will use this class then on your layout, and then you will set the image that you're getting from the API on that layout. Okay. On Flutter, this was as straightforward as using one widget called Circle Avatar, where you basically just have to set your URL from the image. That's it. It will create for you the circle image. And this is possible because Flutter has recreated material design components and iOS design components for many, many things that don't exist on the support libraries, and you have to build them yourself. And when it comes to architecture, Flutter doesn't have activities or fragments, nor view controllers. Now, a screen is a widget, just as a single and individual UI component. So if you want to create a screen, you create a widget. Now, this can be confusing for veteran Android developers, I guess, because probably you like to have a fragment as a screen controller and then a layout that you can edit in a visual way. The difference is, though, that with Flutter, when you're used to the way of developing with Flutter, you don't need those visual editors anymore, because the changes are going to be applied almost instantly on your device. So your device is going to be your visual editor.
So Lara mentioned working with Hamilton as one app that's written in Flutter, and here are just a couple of other companies that also have released apps and are shipping apps in the wild. So we've talked generally about Flutter, but let's take a look at what code looks like in Flutter. So here we have a really simple Flutter app. Probably not one that's going to win any design awards, but it's good for explaining things. So we have a button at the center And the way you write that Flutter code is called a raised button. So, all right, it's called a widget. And you see that on that button widget, where there's some text. So Flutter builds up these things with composition. So you have sort of a parent-child relationship. So if you have the text on the button, you say it's a child of the button. So you can see the code down there. And then this button is centered. So the way you do that is you wrap it in a widget again. So widgets can be used to create things like buttons that you can see, and also things like layout as the centering widget. And then on top of all of that, we've got this app bar with some text, and those are also widgets. And all of these things fold up into a scaffold widget, which kind of helps provide the overall layout of where to place things on the screen. So the code for that whole example is here. You've got your body with that text and the button. And then there's the app bar. And all of that folds up into the scaffold. And you can see that this entire app that we showed a second ago is a widget. It's called My Button Page. And you have that build method. The build method is what Flutter calls when it's ready to display it to screen. All right, so we've talked at you, but it's time for demos and live coding. So let's get to it.
Yes. So you guys, you take over?
Yeah. So what we have here is a very sad little looking puppy adoption app because there are no puppies yet. But I'll take you through a quick view of our files here. So we've got main and WebView.dart. Those are going to be in charge of where we're going to be doing most of our coding today, and for adding the UI components. And then I mentioned that we're getting live data for dogs that are up for adoption in the Orlando area. So how do we get that data? Well, we have a model. We have model and data.dart that's in charge of kind of holding that information. So in our data.dart, we have this fetch doggos method, which is making an HTTP request to get the JSON. And then we are parsing it into Dart objects. So Lara, tell us a little bit about how we get that into a usable format.
As you can see, we have 5 classes. Those are pretty similar. So we are going to take a look to the first one a bit deeper. As you can see, we have this class response, which is basically representing the part of the response we get from the API that we are interested in. In this case, we are interested in the part that has the key body, because that is the part that is giving us the list of dogs. Yes. So this class has just a regular constructor as any class. And then you see that below this constructor, we have another constructor, because we want to use this class to deserialize from JSON, yeah? But we didn't want to write a serializer, so
Nobody wants to write a deserializer.
Yeah, so we are basically using a Dart package for that, which in fact is a group of 3 packages that work together. So as you can see on top, we have imported the JSON annotation package. Then we are using the JSON serializable package and the build runner, which is going to generate some code for us. OK, so let's take a look at our class. This class is annotated with JSON serializable in order so the package recognizes this class, so it knows that this class is going to be used to create the serializer. And how do we use it? So how we can access to this code that is generated from the package itself. Yeah. So we have a factory constructor, which is named for convenience, this response dot from JSON, where we are going to basically pass some data, and this is going to return as a value. So this is basically a function. And as you can see, we are invoking this method, response from JSON. And if we open it, it's part of the generated code from this package. And this is basically what we need to deserialize.
Yeah, so it's pretty great. So all we had to write is this kind of outline of the structure of the code of the format of the data we want. And then the package itself generated all the parsing for the JSON, so we don't have to deal with that, which is pretty nice.
Yes, so to use it, basically, we just call response out from JSON. We pass the data we are getting from the API, and we are going to get back a list of Doggo. Yeah.
Technical term.
Technical term, yeah. So which other class we have? We have the class Doggo, which of course represents a dog in the API.
Lara's favorite.
Exactly. So this has a bunch of information we are going to use later for creating our items and so. Mm-hmm. And also contains the media. From the media, well, I think we all want to look at cute doggy pictures, so we chose to only get the list of image URLs, so we can get to see some nice dogs.
That's really what you're here for, I mean.
Yeah.
All right, so we have this data. Let's take a look at our main app here. So if you look at dog list in the build method, you'll see something pretty similar to that code on the slides that I showed earlier. We've got our scaffold and our app bar and body, which is doing nothing at the moment. So how do we get that data? We're calling fetch doggos right here, which if you recall in the data class, that's that HTTP request. And then we are decoding the JSON into our list of dogs. All right, so we got our list of dogs. Now what? Well, so there's a couple. So now we have this state, because we want to deal with, let me talk about state management in Flutter for a minute. So there's a couple different ways you can deal with state. For very simple cases, you have these, we see stateless widgets, and then there's also a variety called stateful widget. And that's if you have state at a very small level within the UI itself. But in this case, we want to have our list of dogs, and we want to favorite some of those dogs for later so we can look back at them. And we want this to be accessible through multiple screens, so we can have a list of our favorite dog screen and so on. So this is throughout the app. It's not just at a single widget level. So there's a couple different ways you can do that. You can use Redux. You can use block. What we're going to use is probably the simplest thing. It's called scoped model. And so what we do is we get our list of dogs from JSON, and then we pass it into the scope model. So you're scoping how much, where you want this data to be available. In this case, we're going to scope it for the entire app. So we wrap that. It's just kind of like another widget. And then we have our dog list with our scaffolding. OK, so we've talked a lot, but I think this app could be a little more doggy themed. What can we do for that?
Yes. So the first thing I will do is to add an icon, like a logo, let's say, on the app bar. There's a really handy parameter on the app bar, which is called leading, that allows you to add a widget just in front of your title. So for a widget, we selected, just escape. To use an icon widget. And Emily, what Emily called it here is basically just using, she's using the Fonts Awesome icon package and just using the bone icon.
Yes.
So before you hit save, yes, this is it's gonna be shown, the resolution, it's a bit weird.
Thank you.
So, thank you. OK, so now when Emily saves,
get ready.
We're gonna see
Save
the icon.
There it is, already.
Nice.
All right, so Lara, I came here for puppies, though. There's no puppies.
Yeah. So I guess this is pretty simple, and you can see what's the bug here. So right now in our body, we have a list view widget, but we don't have any widgets as children.
Yes. Nothing in our list to display.
Yeah. So what do we have? What do we want? We want to access to the list of dogs we retrieved before when creating our app. So what Emily is doing is accessing to the scope model. So she will be, exactly. She will be able to get the list of dogs and then map those dogs to an item, to a widget we created beforehand. In this case, so we can go faster. And this is the dog list item. So basically, we map the dog to this dog list item. We pass it to list. Yes, exactly. Hit save, that's it. Easy.
So it's like a dog list item.
Yes, so for the dog list item, what do we have here? This is, if you can see on the build method, this is returning an expansion tile widget. But to explain this, it's easier to see the emulator, right? We have here some sort of widgets that have two states. The collapse mode, where you are going to see this icon deleting and the title always. And then when you click, you click on it, you tap on it, you are going to see extra information. And this extra information is what you are seeing here on the screen within the children. So what do we have here in the children of this item? We basically we are calling this method that is giving us a widget, a column, that is holding two text widgets, one for age of the puppy, one for the gender, and then a button. Yes, exactly. So if we go back to our expansion tile, you see that our dog description is it's wrapped by a row.
Yes.
Because we thought, well, yeah, we need to see
Puppy
pictures.
pictures!
Yes. So we can just add our images in our row. We have already coded beforehand this piece because it's really simple. We can go through it faster than we coded. OK. So as you can see, this dog image class is returning a widget that if you check at the bottom of the widget tree, is basically this fade-in image memory network widget. This widget is just loading an image from this URL we are passing, and then it's giving you a transition. It's giving you a fade-in transition. Yes, exactly. Pretty neat. And all we had to do is to use this widget to load the image. And then we thought, well, we want to have rounded corners, so the picture is nicer. So we only had to wrap this with another widget and give those rounded corners. Exactly.
Yeah, so clip rounded rectangle, just wrap it in that, and that's all you have to do.
And then we have a container, so we have a size and some padding. But really simple.
Cool. So, Lara, I want to learn more about Dash, but nothing's happening.
OK, yeah. Let's debug. I already see, yes. We have the button open WebView method that is creating this button. We have the text, but as you can see, we don't have anything now on the onPressed. But before we do anything, what do we want?
Yeah, so we want to, the API that we're using to get this JSON data is from AdoptAPet.com. Why do we pick AdoptAPet.com? Because they have a great JSON API. And so what we want to do is they also have a couple other cool features. If you want to adopt a pet, you can click to inquire and send a message and all this stuff. And rather than us re-implementing all that functionality in our app, we figured it would be easier if we could just display their web page. And so what we'd like to do in this case is when you click the Learn More button, you can just show the full web page and get all the details of your dogs.
Yeah.
So Lara, show us how it's done.
So first, to show this page, we need a new screen, right?
Yes.
So we need to navigate to a new screen.
Yes. So there's a object called a Navigator Object, and it's basically controlling how you move from page to page. And it works just like a stack. So you push and pop off of it, and it takes care of adding that back button and all of those less exciting things that you probably don't want to deal with. But so Lara is saying push onto our a new page, and then we're going to the full dog view, which is where we're going to be coding our web view. She's passing in the dog that we want to display. So
Yes.
now, when you hit save, we should be able, when she presses the button, we should go to that new screen. And there we go. And you can also see there's a back button, so you can navigate back and forth if you want. So let's take a look at full dog view, because I'm not seeing any web page yet.
Okay. So what do we have here? Our class is pretty simple right now. We only have this skeleton, as you've seen before. We have a scaffold with an up bar. That's pretty much it.
Yes. So to add on, we want to add a WebView into the body. WebView is another package that it's a plugin that you can import, and it's just another widget. So Lara adds WebView, and she's going to pass in the initial URL that we want that WebView to display. And then you can specify whether you want to allow JavaScript or not. In this case, we discovered that this web page does not run without JavaScript, so we're going to enable it. And then that's really all you absolutely need. But there's one more feature that you can deal with is this, there's a callback that you can call, and it returns a WebView controller. So this allows you to kind of inquire about the WebView to get information about it. So you could say, like, what URL is the WebView currently displaying? Or I want to move back and forth programmatically through my browser's history. And so we have this controller variable up at the top is completer WebView controller. So basically, the completer is saying, it's like, I have a placeholder for this WebView controller. I don't have it yet. It's going to be completed when the WebView is drawn. So that callback, that on WebView created, gets called when it is created. And then you have a WebView controller that you can kind of inquire about your WebView. And so just to clarify, the rest of Flutter is in control of all of the pixels it's drawing to screen. But Flutter didn't want to re-implement the HTML spec. Nobody wants to do that. So we're calling into this native view to access stuff and kind of poking at it indirectly.
Okay, I'm gonna hit save.
Yes. So now we should be able to, the web view should come up, and there we go. There's Dash, cute little Dash. Show us some more Dash pictures. Oh. So I would like to maybe favorite Dash, add Dash to our favorites list.
Yes, sure. So an easy way to do that is to add a floating action button.
Yes.
Right? So there's a pretty handy parameter on this scaffold that allows you to add a floating action button. And it's called, surprise, floating action button.
Dun, dun, dun.
For this demo, we already coded a floating action button. So we are going to invoke this method.
Yeah.
And as you can see, this is going to return a floating action button. And this is also wrapped with a builder.
Mm-hmm. So if you hit save, you can see the floating action button. It'll be in the lower right corner from your perspective. And what's kind of cool is this is a widget on top of the web view. So you can stack. You see the floating action has that nice little shadow on top of the web page. So you can stack things just like any other Flutter component. Now there's one thing we have in this onPress method. So you remember I was talking about that completer? We are going to, when Lara first hit run, the web view drew and it was completed.
Yes.
But we didn't have that button, that floating action button there yet. So it hadn't been notified that it was completed. So if Lara tries to hit favorite, nothing's going to happen.
Yeah.
It's not actually favoring it, and you're actually going to get a stack trace. It's like,
Although we already have implementation here.
Yes. So the solution to that is Lara is going to do a full restart. And it's actually, sounds scary, but it's called, a hot restart. And that wasn't that bad. That was like 2 seconds. But the thing is we lose our state. So we go back. Let's go back to Dash, load that one. And now, because we have the floating action button, it has received the message that's complete. And so now when Lara hits save, we get that little notification, hey, Dash is in our favorites list. Perfect.
Nice. So.
Oh, and we should point out how we're doing that, adding that to the favorites. So
yes.
You can see over here we have, we're using our WebView controller. got ahead of myself a minute. So the reason that all that I was talking about, that we needed the hot restart, was we're using our WebView controller to access the current URL. Because Lara could click around and go to another new dog, and then you would want to favorite the dog that you're displaying, not the original dog. So we get the URL, and then we convert URL to dog, and then we add that to our scoped model with our state. And we say, add that favorite. And so that's all there is to it.
Yes. So now we can talk about the favorites button we have here on the app bar.
Yes.
So as you can see, we have another class called the favorites button, which is basically this widget you see on the app bar. And this is an icon button. And for the icon, instead of one icon, we chose to have several, because why not? And as you can see,
one icon will not do.
Yes. So we chose to use a dog icon and then put a favorite icon, like offset.
Yeah,
and
so we use a stack. So we're kind of piling two icons on top of each other. And we offset them so you can actually see them.
Yes. So we thought of adding something on top of that, because
More
why
stacks.
not? Yeah. And display the number of favorited dogs.
Yes.
Right? So Emily was talking about the scope model that we are able to access to it throughout our app. Mm-hmm. So we can do the same for the text.
Yeah, so Lara's going to look into, query our scope model and say, how many dogs are in your favorites list? And then you're just going to, so you access the favorites list, and then just call links. And it's simple as that. So favorites, and then we're going to call links, and then say toString to get it in the string format, because text expects a string.
Yeah, and if you remember, we hit save before. We favorited dash. Mm-hmm. So we expect to see a one,
yep.
Right? Okay.
Drum roll, no.
Okay.
All right, there it is.
Yes.
Tiny, nice. Tiny little one. I don't know if you can see it. It's
right
up there.
Yeah. Yeah.
So let's favorite another one. Oh, but actually, there's one more thing that's missing, Lara.
Oh, yeah.
So scope model, again, for performance reasons, like Flutter doesn't want to rebuild widgets if they haven't changed, because that's going to drain your battery. No one wants that. So scope model, again, doesn't notify the child widgets unless something has changed. So we want to say, we're going to grab the scope model and say, is it notify and change? I forget the parameters.
Yes, rebuild
and change.
Yeah.
So in this case, it's saying when we change our favorites list, anything that is accessing the scope model and the favorites list is going to be notified that it has changed, and therefore change the number. So Lara's added that.
Yes.
Now let's favorite another dog, and we can see that in action.
Okay, let's see Holly.
No, she's cute.
Yes.
Okay,
so I'm going to favorite Holly.
So you see a little poo up there?
Nice.
Great.
Great. So as you can see, we are right now looking at our icon button. Mm-hmm. And this icon button has also an onPressed. So for this, you can see that we are basically doing the same as we did before, just navigating to a new screen. In this case, we call it favorites page, because we want to display a list of dogs we like, mm-hmm. Right? So
let's go to our favorites page.
Yes, our favorites page is really simple. It's basically the same as before. We have a scaffold with an app bar.
Why don't you tap on?
Yes, better.
So we went ahead and implemented this, but you'll find that it's because it's stuff that we've already covered. It's stuff that you've just already seen.
Yes. So this is basically the same. We have a list view widget for the body, and this is accessing to our scope model to get the favorites dogs, and then this is mapping each dog to a list style. And this list style is another widget which has, in this case, only a row of dog image and text with the name of the dog. And then when you tap on this item, you are going to be navigated to a new screen. In this case, you are going to this screen we saw before, the full dog view. And you will see the web page for the dog you clicked. on.
Yeah, so why don't you tap on one, show it in action. Now we're back at Dash.
Yes.
Cool. So,
Nice.
Oh yeah, so Lara's so a little bit about these web views. As I mentioned, Flutter has its own sort of rendering system and drawing the pixels to screen. And when we, for example, tap on that favorites button, the question is, do we pass the gesture to the web view, or does Flutter get, like the button, does that get the notification? And so what's happening is on the Android side, there's actually a virtual display, and then we kind of synthesize the touch events to pass on to the web view if we want to have it on. And so Lara's looking at the Flutter inspector, which is a cool little debugging tool, so you can see what widgets are actually drawn. I apologize, it's a little small.
Yeah, it's probably too small for you to see, but we basically just open the inspector to see the widgets we have now displayed. And I clicked on the web view to see what it's being rendered. And in the end, we see that this is creating, well, an Android view, which is basically embedding a Android view, native Android view. In this case, the web view.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, in the span of approximately 25 minutes for coding, we've got a pretty cute little dog adoption app.
Yes.
Hop back to our slides.
Yes. OK.
So all the code that we wrote today is open source. You can check it out at this URL.
It's Emily's Fortuna GitHub account, so you will find the dog house repository.
You might give him one more minute, people take pictures.
OK.
There we go. All right, next. And yeah, if you want to find out more about Flutter, here's the Flutter homepage. There are code labs you can try out. And then there's, of course, Stack Overflow. You can ask questions. And Gitter is where a lot of the Flutter engineers hang out. It's like a chat thing like Slack, and ask questions there. Thank you so much for spending your afternoon with us.
Thank you so much.